This is week 7, part 2. We have guests with us today. We have Khendum Gyabak coming to us from Minnesota, up in Minneapolis, St. Paul area, where she just got a new job in charge of the whole city and the whole state of Minnesota. But no, in all honesty, when she was at Indiana, her life changed in a big way because she got her PhD here at IU and got 3 doggies along the way and a house. And so her life in a business and all sorts of things. But she got real focused on online teaching and learning and how it could possibly transform people's lives, and was helping to create courses for the IST program. And those skills that she learned while she was here in IST and before that, University of Texas at El Paso, transferred when she got her first job at the University of Wisconsin at La Crosse. And she spent a few years there, more than a couple of years, and then went up to Minneapolis, St. Paul to work at the University of Minnesota. And has been at the University of Minnesota as an instructional design consultant, helping a lot of faculty think about their teaching and learning practices and about what the possibilities for teaching online were. While working at the University of Minnesota, she was working for the Water Hands Hope Project, creating curriculum for clean hands and clean water and not clean hands, but sanitation in effect in Papua New Guinea. And she not only worked on such projects in Papua New Guinea, and maybe not necessarily the most safest climate in the world, she also worked in Nepal and has worked in her home country of Bhutan. And so she's been very involved in the developing world in what people would refer to as the Global South. And using her work, her understanding, her ideas about innovative pedagogy, about design and design practices, about critical pedagogy, and getting us to think about design thinking. And she's a leader. And because of her active engagement in communities around the world, she's become a thought leader for what's possible. Last semester, I had her come in to summarize what's going on in Papua New Guinea, in Nepal, and in Bhutan, where she did her dissertation work and her actual dissertation work. And that got everyone engaged, both in my R511 class, as well as in my Silver Lining for Learning podcast show. And she also did the same by teaching a course for us at IU. I think it was 521, if I'm not mistaken. She can shake her head, yes. But this semester, I thought we'd do something different. This semester, I thought, why not hear about the differences between the various jobs that she's undertaken. Now she is working in Minnesota at the Minneapolis College of Art and Design as she was an instructional technology consultant. Now she is a director of teaching and learning, moved up in the world. So one half of our hosts include Khendum, and the other half of our guests now has had an internet connection. So Anita is going to join us, has joined us as well. Her short and long bios are available for you to take a look at. Currently, she's at Baylor College of Medicine. She's, again, like Khendum, creating innovative pedagogies, thinking about STEM education and other discipline areas in which we can teach in a more creative, engaging, and interactive way. Her doctorates at the University of Houston, where I've spent quite a bit of time myself. They have 3 alums of the IST program working down there, 1 in the College of Humanities, my student Fong, and then 2 in the College of Education and the Learning Design and Technology program. Dr. Susie Gronseth, my close friend, who just won Outstanding Alumni Award, Dr. Mimi Lee, who did 2 MOOCs books with me, 3 books total. And so I know many people down there, including the person in charge, Sarah McNeil, who gets everybody doing lots of fun and interesting things. Houston has a real big connection with the medical field because Houston's the whole Houston area is devoted to medicine. And so working at Baylor College of Medicine, I'm sure that Anita has had some unique experiences that will prove beneficial throughout the rest of her career, because she'll always be able to say that she worked in the medical complexes of the Metro Houston area. And so again, I asked both of these people to come back after last semester, everyone enjoying so much the interviews that we had with them. I thought, since they know each other, I don't like to bring people back twice in a row because I know their time is valuable. But in this case, I made an exception. And I said, I have to try and convince them to come back. And they both said yes within 5 seconds. So I guess it's okay. So, so Anita's been really working on ways to interact both synchronously and asynchronously. And that's critical during this time of the pandemic. But she's also been involved in community outreach programs, simulation technologies, which is also very critical as we move to think about high fidelity experiences when during COVID, what can we do with immersive worlds where we don't, have to worry about COVID transmission and so forth. So both these people have been the cutting edge of what's possible in the area of learning, design, and technology, both in different ways. And so we'll benefit from hearing their respective stories. I've given them a set of 10 questions. And then, of course, they realize I'm not going to ask any of those questions. And instead, we should probably get them maybe to summarize a little bit about what each of them have done since you've been on this show 6 months ago. What has happened in their respective professional lives? What have they been more interested in recently since they've, been now 2 years into the pandemic, working in the field, and Khendum in particular, changing, jobs in midstream. That's not an easy thing to do and decision to make, but she's moved up and hopefully into getting some ability to control some budgets and so forth, and spend some money in a useful and fun way. So Anita, since you joined us second, why don't you start off with what have you done since we heard you back in I heard you back in October, I believe it was. What has changed in the past 6 months for you, and what fun stuff, what powerful stuff, what interesting stuff would you like to talk about? And before you do anything, I want to point out that on page 253 of my most recent book that arrived in the mail today at 4:30.
Oh my gosh.
She's in my new book. So Maina Jew and I, who's in this, Maina and I have a brand new book, Transformative Teaching Around the World. And it's just out, and Khendum has a key chapter in that book. So
awesome. Congrats, Khendum.
So tell us a little bit about what you do at Baylor, and how has your role changed, if at all, in the last 6 months, or what projects have you been working on during the past 6 months?
Yeah, a lot has changed, actually. Thank you so much for having me first, Kurt. I apologize for the delay. My computer has been really acting up for this past week. I don't know. I think it's just decided that I probably need a break. And, even instructional designers have issues with technology. So be ready for that.
Ghosts in the machine. There is special.
There is a ghost in my machine.
Special powder for that,
I just got back from Louisiana, so I probably got some voodoo with me. Okay. I think since we last met, I think the last time we met, I had just transitioned to a new role. So I'll just give you a little background about my journey with Baylor. I've been in healthcare education for a minute now. I was at the University of Houston College of Nursing before this job, and now I'm at the Baylor College of Medicine. I was initially hired to lead with the executive director to lead an educational innovation core at Baylor. And surprise, surprise, such a big medical facility, such a named medical organization never had any instructional design presence, which was pretty surprising when I started. But that's very common in healthcare education, because I think instructional design is just sort of, and distance education is just sort of finding its way into healthcare ed, because otherwise usually everything is very based in clinicals and labs and all of that. But that's what I was initially hired for, and that's what I did for the first year, is just set up the core. And I came at the time when COVID just hit. Like I was in office, like actual office, physical office for a month, and that was it. That was the only time I was ever in office. Now I've been remote for the past 2 years. But there was so much training, faculty development, quality course design, pulling everything that was face-to-face into an online environment, training faculty on how to teach online, engaging students, assessing students online, alternative assessments, not just exams. What else can you do for international students and domestic students who were all displaced during that time? So that's pretty much what I did. It was a very busy year, a lot of heavy lifting that first year. Then last
Were there
year,
any times when you just got so frustrated to say, I can't do this anymore? I mean, if the people give me one more request that I have to adapt my learning for one more population, that's it. I can't do. Did that ever come up?
There was no time to think, actually. I think we just sort of, we ran with it. I think because it was a new core, the requests started pouring in. There were so many faculty. Baylor is made up of 4 different schools. Like they have health professions, they have they actually have 4 different colleges. So we were dealing with almost 3,000 faculty, just 2 people. And it was interesting. I mean, there was no time to even think that, oh my gosh, I can't even do it. So, well, fast forward now, I think it's a more, for my role, transition to something that is more strategic now. I was reassigned into the Academic Affairs and Health Science Department with the assistant provost last fall. So now I've become, instead of serving schools and more at a curriculum level, I'm serving more of the institutional distance education sort of initiatives and activities. Also, I think it has involved a lot of involvement in accreditation like SACS-COC and NC-SARA and things that I had never heard about, never knew about. So pretty much like reviewing narratives and, understanding the whole accreditation process. I do have a lot of different projects, but they're all at an institutional level. So something like faculty promotion, faculty, assignments and all of that, where how do they develop, from a assistant faculty into a provost or higher role. So, developing trainings for those things. A lot of involvement with institutional distance education like initiatives. So I'm co-chairing the DE committee now. So thinking about, how do we bring in that whole quality matters, quality assurance kind of standards into, developing programs, developing courses, developing e-learnings and trainings for schools, for faculty, for our clinicians, for our partners, more at an institutional level. So that has changed. I also took on another role outside of Baylor. I'm teaching an online course at the University of Houston, sort of going back to my alma mater. I'm teaching a master's level course to health science education, to students of the health science education program. It's called Educational Uses of Computer Mediated Communication. So it's completely asynchronous, but it's fun. So I say Baylor by day, UH by night. So that's all the fun stuff that's been happening.
So a couple things. What's TE mean?
DE,
Oh,
distance
DE.
education.
Okay,
yeah.
I thought you said TE. I was wondering what TE was. So you will have Tusi Harumi. I was trying to book Tusi Harumi for last week. We just couldn't. So my students, I will invite them to join your students. I don't know if anyone will, but he's very much into healthcare simulations and gaming, and he's a great guy. So send me that date again. I think it was like April 4th or something.
Yes,
or,
yes, that week of April. I have a bunch of guest speakers that week. Yeah. I mean, I needed someone for simulation. If I didn't find someone, I would have sort of done it myself because I have a little experience in simulation from U of H.
Right. So you had a whole list of links too. So if you could send me with his bio, with his picture and all that. So I can find it, but it'll make it easier if you send it to me, and I'll forward it to you, Meena, because you can invite your students to that one too, because she's teaching like a gaming course, right? Immersive worlds kind of course, right?
Yeah. I have one course on serious game design.
Yeah. So you would like to see Harumi, from Central Florida. So I've got 10 questions for you guys, but I want to hear from Khendum and what she's been up to the last 6 months, besides taking dogs for a walk, and putting them up in TikTok and Instagram. So tell us about your dogs first.
Well, thanks for the wonderful introduction. It's really nice to be here again in your class. So hello, everyone, from an old IST alum to the new IST people. So what have I been up to the last 6 months? A lot has happened, right? So I think I'll start personally. I still have my 3 dogs. Well, one is living with my in-laws now. I can manage only 2. So I have Zuzu and Crixus. They're snoring. So if you hear them in the background, them. So yeah, a lot has happened. I think kind of like Anita too. I was at the University of Minnesota in just the start of the pandemic. So faculty development, a lot of program development all happened in this very emergency mode of teaching and learning. As you know, most institutions, and I think a lot of these research one institutions, faculty tend to be very good at like their research area, but when it comes to teaching, it's kind of weak in that space. So I think it's really starting those conversations about how can you be a more mindful teacher, you know, kind of like really putting student into the center of your design, right? Your design thinking of when you're thinking about how you're putting together your instruction. So at the U, I was primarily involved in kind of just getting faculty through, like I developed an online teaching and learning program called Foundations for Online Teaching that also had a lot of standards that Anita was mentioning, like quality matters that are taken, adapted towards more of the use format, and kind of getting them into that space of just thinking about, you know, this space, right? Like, but it was very emergency mode of teaching. And I think also because of the pandemic, because of people are just exhausted working in this space, there wasn't much room for creativity or like, you know, all of these innovative pedagogies as we are kind of like talking about and we get excited about, right? It was just, how do I survive in this mode? So along that space, I was also developing a lot of content and in some ways support materials in terms of like just self-care strategies for online teaching. Also supporting students, right, in that space. A lot of students are not used to this mode of learning. So I think it's also trying to support them through that, you know, through this journey of, you know, you'll be all right. You know, here are tips and tricks to kind of, you know, stay alive. A lot of information on self-directed learning, right, time management. So all of that. And then as I was at the U, a lot of my work that's background in my research is really framed along the, I guess, ethos of equity, equitable education. And I was not able to really do that during the pandemic. Like I couldn't go to Papua New Guinea. A lot of our mission projects were on hold. So I wanted to kind of still continue doing that. So aside from my role at the U, I'm also a council member for Asian Pacific Minnesotans here in the state of Minnesota, where I primarily work towards advocating for issues that are affecting, let's say, Asian Americans here in the state. So it's really trying to bring like a community-based understanding and kind of tying that up to like DEI initiatives. So at the U, I also developed a diversity, equity, inclusion training for staff just to create that awareness. And I think kind of like really intersecting some of these ideas. Then I got this job at Minneapolis College of Art and Design sometime in November. And my role primarily was, I think like prior to me coming, it was more of this very technical space, technical support space. And I think prior to me coming, they were also in the same things that I was doing at the U, where it was very emergency mode, getting a lot of the faculty just teaching in this space, right? So I think when I came, a lot of the materials were already developed. People were already brought up to speed with, let's say, teaching in Canvas or effectively teaching. The Google Meet is like how y'all are using Zoom. Google Meet is what they're using at MCAD. So in my role now, I'm trying to develop programs, but also kind of now slowly reel in people into this whole space of inclusive teaching and learning, thinking about innovative pedagogies from an art and design instructional perspective. And I think in an art and design school, what is very inherently built in, like, for artists and designers is this very ableist mindset of how you do instruction or how you teach, or how, for example, they have students stand up and paint for like 5 hours, right, 6 hours. And we all know in education, like, you lose your engagement, right? Like, what are you learning at that point? Pardon?
Except for the Saturday class.
Yeah, okay.
It's the same. It's the same in medical
Yeah.
education. It's the same.
Yeah. So I think it's really kind of bringing people back into the space. And I think there is a dire need for that in higher education. I think DEI is just thrown here and there, right? But I think like there is a way to mindfully do DEI. So some of the initiatives that I've started with my team is even developing support materials for decolonizing the curriculum, thinking about how they can apply inclusive teaching and learning techniques in student engagement, student motivation, even how faculty or instructors consider their own bias or how they do instruction, right? So putting together a lot of materials, programs, workshops, toolkits, in this space. So I think this whole year, that's my goal. Another thing is at MCAT, about 40% of our students are Pell Grant recipients, first generation students. So really introducing HIPS, high impact learning practices, among faculty to try to embed, talk about authentic learning, community-based education, like collaborative learning methods that have not really been practiced before. So it's just kind of getting people started to think in that space. So yeah, that's what I've been up to the last 6 months.
Well, you're hip or hips.
Yeah.
Hips. Always Khendum. So Khendum has a chapter in my new book, as was mentioned in there, and it was supposed to be called Making Impact. So you're talking about making impact. Maina and I originally were trying to title this the book, but that's our preface and our intro and our ending is before making impact, time to make impact, and after making impact. So it's all about, how people who have taken my Saturday class for 5 hours and now are implementing the ideas in 22 different countries around the world. So, it was a big project for us, but we're both glad it's out. Maina's got to go to her office at Wayne to pick her books up, I guess. But people are wondering, you have unique jobs compared to the other people we've talked to this semester. So what helped you land this specific job? What skills did you have? What insights did you have? What tricks did you use to get the job that you have? What did you do in writing an application or in contacting people? So what helped you get the job? And what are a couple of skills maybe that are needed in this job that you weren't prepared for in graduate school? So if you could describe what some of the things that they might want to take to prepare them for such a job. But what did you do to get the job that you have, Anita?
Oh gosh, the tricks. Okay, what tricks did I? Oh, I did a little song and dance for them. Did a whole Broadway show. So well,
And you are a Bollywood person, so we know that.
No.
So she does star in Bollywood types of shows or productions in the Houston area. Yes, she is actually an actress of sorts.
Dancer.
So, a dancer. Yeah.
Okay. I think, that's like a double question. Okay. So I think I'll take the second one first, if graduate school prepared you for that.
Yeah, before you do that second one, everyone, the Jamboard 4 is Khendum questions. Jamboard 5 is Anita questions. So if the link's in there in the chat. So go ahead.
I think, what graduate school really prepares, especially a doctoral program, I think it prepares you for more research. And that's initially, when I got into the doctoral program, I wanted to be a professor. That was my whole reasoning. There was nothing else. There were no two ways to that. I never, ever imagined that I would be a staff member, that I would be doing instructional design. I would be like shelling out like how to resources and training faculty, and exactly like what Khendum said, all of those tools, helping them develop those tools or teaching. I never ever imagined that I would be doing that. That was, I just wanted to steer away from anything that involved like graphic design or design of any kind. I just wanted to teach. But I think with graduate school, it trains you to be professors. It trains you in research and program evaluation and qualitative, quantitative data analysis and all of that. Of course, you in learning design and technology programs, you do have like courses that train you in those other technological skills. But I think, when I landed my first job at UFH College of Nursing, which was 3 months after I graduated from the doctoral program, I feel I pretty much learned everything on the job, because I don't think the graduate program ever teaches you how to deal with difficult subject matter experts, how to, sort of create a faculty buy-in. You sort of go in expecting that, I'm from the College of Education where everybody is so hip and they know everything about technology, and I sort of expect the same thing out of this college. That's not happening. Okay. So you have to sort of gauge where people are coming from, what their background is, what their technology skill set is, what their attitude towards technology is. So in healthcare education, it's very, very different. It's a totally different world from where I came from, where it was second nature to engage students and to use different tools and be aware of pedagogies and authentic learning and collaboration and community practice and all of that. They have no idea on how to even use Microsoft Word. So you come into this environment, and that's what teaches you is that you never make assumptions, never expect things. So I think you have to sort of meet them halfway where they are. And that's pretty much what I learned. I feel like I learned everything on the job. The skill set that I developed is because I wanted to be a teacher, a professor. I am a good teacher. So I'm very good in faculty development. I'm very good at engaging them and doing different things and motivating them. And I had a whole micro credentialing system to get faculty buy-in into attending my sessions. So that was the skill set that got me into Baylor. They saw that I could really create that kind of buy-in, that I was very good at. I had a lot of knowledge about how to teach faculty, how to teach students, how to engage learners, and how to make it fun versus something that is sort of that you have to do this, you have to use this technology, but making it more fun. So I think that was it.
So Khendum, we'll go to you on that.
I think similar to Anita. However, like I think in my own trajectory of like where I've landed now, I think these two things happened like simultaneously. And the reason why is like before I came to the PhD program, right, at IU, I was working as an instructional designer before that. And then when I was at IU, the way our PhD program is designed is it's a little bit different from a traditional PhD program in the sense it's this whole portfolio based approach where you are developing some kind, you're developing skill sets, you're applying it, you're showing cases of what you've designed. And I think that was really helpful when it came to like, let's say, getting a job too, right? Like after IU, so when I worked as an instructional designer at UWL. But I think one of the beauties of also going through the PhD program is like when you go through a direct practitioner based, like a master's program, I think the PhD program pushes you to be more critical, to kind of like really meditate on the nuance, right, of like what's going on. So you have this sectional understanding of like different ideas and how it comes together, very systems level view of how you can put these different things together. So you're not really working in a silo of like, let's just say if you have a master's in interaction design, you're just like in that space. So in this very technical space, like even if you get a master's in instructional design, right, it's this very practitioner centered, okay, here's a model, here's how you apply it. So I think like having that, and then working as an instructional designer, like, developing a lot of these, I think what Anita mentions, a lot of these soft skills, right, is relationship building. Faculty, they are just like, they become students, right, when they are in that process of professional development. And I think you have a spectrum of learners. So it's like really meeting them where they are. And it's like when I was even taking this job at MCAT, like one of the questions, and I think I forgot the question, but my answer was, like when you think about faculty development, it's like you are dating to get married. It's not like going on Tinder, So it's this really long-term relationship you're building, right? So like, you'll have terrible days where, they just don't want to do something like that. But then they come back to you, and then they I don't know, there's like some period where they realize, oh, wow, like, maybe when I used that formative assessment, for polling, it did help my students, right? My student evaluations improved a little bit, so when they get that kind of feedback, so it takes a while. So a lot of these soft skills, again, you don't learn in school, right? I think you do develop on the job. So one of the advice I can give is like, even for students who are studying instructional design, or like even for PhD students, is like maybe start doing consulting work on the side, taking up a lot of these projects. So then you do have a real world understanding, applications of how that functions, but then you're also developing this theoretical understanding of the field, methods, frameworks that are important too. So I think it's this marriage of these two things.
I have many more questions for you, but we'll have to go to student questions here in a little bit. I want to point out that both of them have goals to be a professor somewhere, and both of them have realized their goals indirectly. They've gotten jobs in, a nonprofit or a hospital healthcare setting, and their university they got their doctorate in have asked them to come back to teach for them, each of them. Khendum's teaching for IU. She got her degree at IU. Anita's teaching for University of Houston. She got her degree at University of Houston. So probably the best of both worlds, because you probably wanted to teach for the place you went to school. That's always where I went. I wanted to teach at Wisconsin. I'm sure Mano would say, I want to teach at Indiana. But we end up at someplace else. Oftentimes.
Yeah, it's like that boyfriend you can never get over. So yeah, with UFH, it's like, oh, my heart. I'll always say yes.
And so I was going to ask you about your most proud, or something you got a lot of positive feedback on in the past few years. What would be the one thing that comes to mind as something that you feel the most proud of, or that you got the most positive feedback on, and you've been able maybe replicate it again, or maybe that was a one-time thing? What would that be? What kinds of things do these students have to look forward to in their futures?
Sure. So for me, I think one, like that moment that you referred to was, I went back to Papua New Guinea right before the pandemic. And before that time, like I had done quite a bit of research in New Guinea, developing curriculum in the health education space. So one of the outcomes of that project was this teacher's resource manual on water, sanitation, and hygiene. And in that book, like the co-teachers, like the teachers and I, we co-wrote a song in Pidgin, right, on hand washing. So when I went back after a couple of years, just before the pandemic, children were singing that song. So I think for me, it was like really, I don't know, I felt like very satisfied, like when you talk about impact, I was like, wow, like, something's, like, because a lot of, I think for me, like, and I'm sure Anita can also speak to this, like in the space that we are, like we're always producing, they're doing, and it's so like, it's like you're climbing a ladder and then all of a sudden there's another ladder. So you really don't have much time for this moment of reflection, or, like this pat on the back too, right? Like, so I think for me, like that space was just like, wow, yeah, like, here's impact for you. So I think that's what I remember.
Very good. I don't think anybody can top that, but I'll let Anita try.
I don't think I can top that. I don't think I can even write a song, let alone sing it. So, but
you can dance it. You can dance it.
Yes, there you go. I can choreograph it. I think for me, pat on the back, and I even talked about this, in the last, session that we met in, was my faculty development series, because, I came into a world where they had never experienced faculty development in the real sense of the word. Like there was no engagement. It was just very basic, face-to-face, 1 hour brown bag. And then, when I came in, I sort of did a sort of a needs analysis when I was in UFH nursing, and I saw that and it's the same in Baylor as well as that. All healthcare workers, they're really busy. They have clinicals, they have various schedules, they're teaching, they're always on the go. So they really don't have time to just sit somewhere and get trained. Uh, Most of the times, I mean, their first question is, what is in it for me? I mean, I am teaching, it's going fine, students are okay, nothing's wrong, why should I change things? So but then you want to push it that now it's you're teaching online, so there are better ways to do this. So I think that's where I got a pat on the back, because I developed this series called Belt. I even wrote a presentation. I presented 3 years ago at e-learn in New Orleans on it, that it was because it was all based in pedagogy and thinking about how adults learn, that they how do you chunk information into smaller bits so that it's more digestible, it's more um, more engaging for them. So I developed a whole micro learning. It was not like micro learning is 10 minutes. This was more 30 minutes, but it was like 20 minutes of just understanding what the tool is, the educational implications of it, how they can use it, and then just sort of like a practice, and then they would have some sort of a deliverable. So that program, that faculty development program, really took off, because then initially I didn't have so much attendance. It was just 1 or 2. But then I started a whole micro-credential pathway, where they would like attend a few sessions, they would get a badge, attend some more, they would get a badge, and it would take them to the next level. Ultimately, the goal was to identify champions, because my philosophy has always been to empower them to do it themselves. I can be their guide. I can teach them how to do it, but eventually they're the ones who are the main users of the tool or the technology or the pedagogy. So, having them take the onus, the lead to use it. So that was the ultimate, and it was so great that I reached that point. In 1.5 years at UFH nursing, that point came when one of the faculty became a champions in a tool, and she taught other faculty on how to use it. So I felt like, and I was just there on the side guiding her, and just just there, and they were like, they still remember it. I did a similar faculty development program in Baylor, and that also took off because it was all based in instructional design theory and all of that. So I think that has always been my favorite pat on the back.
So last year or last semester, you showed us the belt.
Belt and tilt.
And I can't remember what belt stands for.
Bites of e-learning tools.
Okay.
And the tagline was, get some cool tools under your belt. So there was a lot of faculty buying and marketing and flyers that went into, developing that. So
you showed us actually the website.
Yes.
And Khendum, you might have a website too. Do either of you want to quickly share, because we got a lot of questions for you, but do either of you want to quickly show a website? And you had so many tools with that one, Anita. I think the students last semester really benefited from the list of, and you told them they could use it, I think. If I'm not mistaken.
I have my screens on, so I'll go first. Okay. Sorry, Khendum. I'll quickly go over it. So Belt was, bites of e-learning tool. They were basically 15 to 20 minute sessions. That was all in Baylor. And this, I kept the whole playlist sort of open, for everyone. Mostly, of course, it's UFH copyright. But we did a lot of different things. We talked about pedagogy, used a variety of tools. My focus was always on using tools that were available instead of buying something new. So that was tools that were part of the system or that were already purchased by UFH, or that you had the UFH login. And then I think with Tilt, it was a little different. it followed Garnier's principles, of instruction. So basically, it always started with some kind of a gaining attention, and then there was the introduction, and then there was always an activity or deliverable of the end. So it was really steeped in instructional design pedagogy.
Stop for a second now. Is Garnier your favorite?
Yes.
Okay.
Most
So,
of my asynchronous learning is also designed on his principles.
okay. Khendum, who's your favorite?
I'm very agnostic.
Oh gosh.
So I do apply various, I'm saying, methods, right? But I think a lot of active learning techniques, a lot of, it's a mix of everything.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Anita. Go
Same,
ahead.
same. I think with when I have face-to-face teaching, it's a little different. When it's asynchronous, it's different. So I use variety of like Kirkpatrick's, and so variety of different principles. But most of my asynchronous is based on a little bit of his principles. So yeah, Tilt was pretty much it was it included both pedagogy and hands-on. This was longer. It was like 1 hour. All of these were synchronous, so there was no asynchronous element to this at all. Belt had some asynchronous elements to it, where they had activities, or they had to do a Kahoot, or they had to do a poll, or they had to submit something after a week of attending the session. So it had that kind of a deliverable. But Tilt was, because it was so fast paced in that environment when COVID had hit, there was no time to really make it into anything longer. It was just training. Yeah. So yeah, so these were like two of my favorite. They're on my website, and you can look at them. You can see some of the information about them, and you can email me more. I still have to write about Tilt though.
No, it sounds great, and thank you for sharing that. Khendum, do you have something else to share with us?
Sure. I put a link to my portfolio. I haven't updated it, since I got this job. But you can see examples of, do you want me to like screen share too?
Yeah.
Sure. Let me see, where is it? All right. So there's just different artifacts of, what I have, I guess, produced over time. There's the talk I had for Silver Lining, the DEI training I was mentioning at the U. Oh, this is another thing that I'm very proud of. At UWL, I developed an online readiness tutorial. So again, at UWL, most students are not familiar with navigating an online space. So the tutorial was very helpful to kind of get them through that hump.
And if you're not aware, it's University of Wisconsin at La Crosse, which is really close to the Minneapolis border of Wisconsin. It's in the hill country. It's because it's on the Mississippi River and the boundary. And so it's a beautiful city, actually. Very pretty campus where she worked. I don't know why she would leave for Minnesota.
I know, it's my husband, you follow. But anyway, I'm here, no complaints. So this is the online teaching program that I developed at the U. Now at MCAT, a lot of programming is done, like I mentioned about inclusive. So I show you samples of what that looks like too. So let me just get a copy. So if a number of you are interested in inclusive teaching and learning, this is a very recent resource that we just put together. Gives you a sense of what I've been doing recently. And how do I go back? Okay, I'm here. So yeah, I've done a number of also program development. So like Anita, I've also developed nursing program in UTexas. I don't have a sample here, but similar to that, like the writing program was pretty big. So this was a whole project-based learning system that they wanted to develop for the writing studies department at the U. So this is a sample of like how the online course look like. So you can see it's very project-based rather than, I'm seeing in a typical writing class can be very passive, right? So it really incorporated a lot of active learning techniques, a lot of project based kind of methodology. Another thing that I developed at UWL is, we talk a lot about standardizing the student learning experience, but also upholding the academic standards across all online courses. So online evaluation guidelines is something that me and my team at UWL, we put together that was adapted from Quality Matters. And then, but the interesting thing with this guideline is we, I think Anita also referred to this, right? Like kind of identifying faculty champions. So we did have an online faculty advisory board that was heavily involved in the reflective or reflexive aspect of like giving us feedback as we developed this guideline. So when it was time to incorporate it in, let's say, faculty's course development review process, there was a lot of buy-in because they knew that it was developed, like there was a lot of feedback from faculty. So it wasn't like this very top-down mandated approach that, hey, here's the standards, but hey, we built the standards communally and like, let's try to apply it. So I think that was, we did publish a paper from this talking about where is the paper? It's somewhere here. I guess I didn't put a link to that, but you'll find it in my CV if you check me out. Another interesting, so this is the resource book I mentioned in Papua New Guinea. So that's the cover, and that gives an example of all the artwork was done by one of the teachers in Papua New Guinea. And I think this was in, this also has components of like, if you talk about diversifying the curriculum or decolonizing the curriculum, a lot of, especially in international education, a lot of visual materials have this very Anglophonic applications, right, of how even art looks like. So I think I really wanted to have local people draw their own, surroundings. So it's very reflective of like, what they are actually seeing and doing in their own settings, rather than, having like, let's say a white person in the book and where people out there are not white, right? So I think even for students, they are able to relate to the material. And then these are just like my own little mini projects where I draw stuff. So lately, yeah, this has been of interest. So I don't know if, and I think this is something that we can talk about too, as people in this space of, I guess, innovative pedagogy is now the Web3, right? We talk about the metaverse. At MCAD, we're doing a lot with augmented reality and kind of like really innovating how even studio critiques are done in the classrooms through AR, VR. And next week, I'm going to be moderating a panel on the impact and just the landscape of NFTs. So I don't know if you all are familiar with the non-fungible tokens. So I did create my own NFTs from my dog. So I did this as part of Elizabeth Bowling. I think if you take her graphics design course, so these were like 100 sketches of my dog Crixus hiding. And I took pieces of thumbnails from here and I converted it into an NFT. So if you want to make me rich, please buy my NFT. That's like a shameless plug. So anyway.
I'm sure you'll be getting the cash at the end of this show. Plenty of money coming through now. And maybe we'll sell a few books. Maina and I will sell a few during this episode as well of our brand new book. Go out and get one. No.
So yeah, I'll share with you my NFTs if people are interested in NFTs. And I think it's very interesting for instructional design students to get into this space. It's a very up and coming space, but
you've made 2 cents right away, right there. Okay.
Oh, it's all in cryptocurrency. So I think each one is like about $4,000 now. So.
I need to get into that space now.
So yes, we'll follow that up. So I'm glad you were showing us websites, because I think I'll make a YouTube video out of this. I'll share it with Maina so you can share it with your students, and you guys, I'll share with both of you so you can share your students as well, because that was very valuable, I think. We have questions on the Jamboard. So I have questions left for you, but I want to open up to the students on the Jamboard because we're at almost 8 o'clock already. But we didn't start on time. We were delayed start. We didn't start till 10 after, a quarter after. So who wants to start us first with a question? Who had something on the chat?
I think
Go
I
ahead.
can go. There's a question that says, are there as many research chances in the industry as there are in the academic fields? Yes.
So whose question was that?
Dr. Bonk, this is my question.
Okay. Shane, you want to restate it in another? So I didn't get that. What was the question, Chen?
Thank you, Anita. Yeah, this is my question. I got that when I listened to your introduction about your background. So I was concerned that because you see, this is especially during the pandemic, and the faculty position is quite limited. So in case in the future, if I cannot find a job as a faculty member, so if I go to the industry, and so can I just find as many research chances as the industry? That's one of my concerns. Thank you.
Yes. I mean, so like I said, I always wanted to be a professor. I love to write. I love to research. I love to learn every day. And this is a field which is ever evolving. So there is no limit to how much you can learn and how much you can know. And that's why, I've always, like, every year I have either sent in a paper, I've, gone to conferences, I've presented. There's always been, whatever you do, it's of value. I mean, it's, even if there is like probably 100 people who are doing the same, but you probably, whatever you're doing, like, for example, my belt series, the tilt series, now my current role as a quality matters coordinator. So I'm overseeing all quality assurance programs, strategizing how that quality, how to bring in quality matters in full swing into the institution. So, those are all topics worth writing about. And, I mean, wherever you find an opportunity, you just send in your work, keep writing, keep a journal, or just keep jotting down what you're doing. Think about it, look at the research, what are other people saying, what are the trends that are happening in that particular field. Bring it all together and send in either a manuscript or a paper. And it's wherever you go, whatever institution, for them it will always be like a feather in the cap. It's like, okay, this person sort of represented our organization and all the innovation that we are doing at this particular conference. So I think it's always a plus. And I feel like there are more opportunities of research when you're in industrial instructional design versus I mean, unless you're tenure track, of course, you have to keep writing as a faculty. But I feel like there's more opportunity when you're an actual instructional designer, because you do a lot more. You wear multiple caps. You have a lot of different projects going, a lot of different subject matter experts, a lot of different groups that you collaborate with.
Khendum, do you want to try and answer the question as well, even though she didn't write it for you?
So can you repeat the question? I'm so old now.
So, if you want to go into higher ed faculty job, but you end up in industry, do you still have research opportunities that you can engage in?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think it, there's this blur anymore. Like, even like Anita mentioned, like, even for me, even when I was working as an instructional designer, even now, like every year I'm writing a design case, presenting at a conference, running a panel. So I think you can do a lot of these things. Like, so I think like this mindset of, preparing yourself for a tenure track job is also kind of changing now. And I think it's a mindset shift, right? So I think it's just really making yourself agile in terms of like not thinking of research as just this tenure tracky space, but like even like if you have a PhD or if you are interested in research, you can always collaborate with other people too, in the field. And like Anita mentioned, absolutely. Like, I think being a practitioner, you have direct access to I don't use clinical, but I'm saying, you have direct access to, subject matter experts, a diverse portfolio of different projects, that you can always be doing, compared to a tenure track where you might be only focusing on like one research, right, for a while. So you are able to kind of like taste different types of food. So I think, but I think also like what you need to be mindful is like find and this goes back to like, kind of being very reflective and reflexive of like, how you're growing as a designer, so I think spending time in really deepening your understanding of design philosophy, your own design philosophy, your own theories that inform your practice, I think then kind of prepares you to focus on issues that matter. And I think like when you have that motivation together, then you're able to piece all of these things together too, like the practice, the research, and then, like bringing it together. It's like this little puzzle, right?
I'll answer from my perspective. Before you get tenure, you're expected to do research. And for me, it's been the opposite. I didn't do much research before tenure. I got tenure in my teaching, and now I'm full professor. I'm doing all sorts of research. And most full professors don't do the amount of research that I'm currently doing. But basically, my point is that the teams I'm on have enabled me to, we submitted 11 studies in December alone. I'm on 11 different research teams. You can do, if you find the right people to work with, anything's possible. Research is possible. You just got to find the people you want. There's 7 billion people in the world. You only have to work with 4 or 5 or 10 of the people you like, and that's all you need to find is a few good people and a few, people that have good, keen insights. I know Ken asked me on the way back from Indianapolis, we were at a dissertation defense Friday, and she says, what skills do you need? You need good critical thinking skills. I said, no, you don't need any good critical. You need creative thinking first. As a researcher, you can get a team member who has critical thinking skills. That's fine. You don't need any you really don't need critical thinking skills to do research. You need persistence, the mindset of you have to not get too disappointed by rejections, and just keep coming back and keep doing it, and just having creative idea that you implement and try out and accept failure. Failure is going to happen. And you can get team members, they can be the critical thinkers. You need critical thinking too, but it's not as important as opening up. You have to generate first. Life is a generative evaluative process. First, you have to generate. If you're just a good critical thinker, all you're doing is value, you don't get anything done. You won't make any discoveries if all you do is critique things and people. You'll be a cynic of everything that's being done in the world. You won't do anything yourself. So you have to have an open mindset, be aware of your environment and what the possibilities are, and write those possibilities down on a sheet of paper and refine them, and then explore them, and then get other people to join you in that effort. So we have a couple questions for Khendum on the board there, and Sunmei wants to jump in here. So.
Yeah, I have a question for both of you. That's because I'm listening to your answer, but I think that you guys are both working in kind of education industry, right? Yeah, so that's it possible to continue to research. I think that maybe it's hard to, as a instructional designer working in a just corporation, just a company, for example, Google or Facebook. So is it possible, do you think, to continue the research?
I think if you can make, there's definitely the flexibility. I think like for people like us, I don't say higher education is a bit lax, but you do have, there is that respect to do research and to present, right? But I think like that understanding and awareness is also growing in the corporate sector too. So I think as long as you're able to make a case for why you're doing the things you're doing, that can also help the company grow or shine, right? But at the same time, there is this researchy aspect to what you're doing. So I think if you can make that kind of link and make a case for it, right? So, but I think in the corporate sector, you have to advocate for yourself a lot. So if you don't go and say like, hey, I want to go into this conference, this is how this conference is going to help me grow professionally. And then with this knowledge, I'm able to do this, right? For the, because corporations, what they care about money, So I think like, as long as you're able to make that kind of case, but really advocate for yourself, I really think it's possible. Because even like, what was it recently? I heard like places like Facebook or even Google, a lot of them are now hiring a lot of PhDs, and there's this really growing appreciation for hiring people with research skills too.
I agree. I think that's what the doctoral program really trains you for is research. And I feel like, it almost becomes like a sixth sense where you see research and data everywhere. Whatever you write, whatever you do, you're like, I can write this out. So, but I have always been in academia. That's a love affair I would rather not let go of. But like Khendum said, you have to make a case for yourself. I feel that at the end of the day, it's research, it's data, and success of an organization, of an institution is based on successful data. So if you can present that, more power to you. So I feel like if you can make that case, whether you're in corporate, whether you're in academia, uh, academia, of course, easier because data relates to accreditation, to, better standards, to compliance and all of that, to student outcome. In a corporate world, it would account to, the success of that particular industry, of that particular company. So
2 weeks ago, we had, or maybe last week, Xiang Shao, who's my doc student, looking at micro-credentials. She was on also, she was with us 6 weeks ago. But at the end, she was saying she's getting her PhD at IU and she's going back for her master's. She works for IU, so it'll pay for it. She's going back for her master's in learning analytics and data analysis. And we were on a dissertation defense last Friday of my student, Rob Elliott, and he studied 250 million data points in mobile across all 9 IU campuses, 60,000 courses, 90,000 students, all big data. And AERA has money to analyze big data. So analyzing data is where it's at today. And I think, taking courses in data analytics could enhance your master's or your certificate or your doctorate in learning, design, and technology /IST. That's one way to go. I know Mena is going to ask a question here. She's taking a couple of MOOCs that are machine learning and data analytics and other kinds of things to, enhance her skills. Mena, I think, has a question or a comment.
Yeah, thank you, Khendum and Anita, for the great conversation and share your experiences. Because both of you have been in this field for a long time, I have a question, like for students in the master program, like my student, do you have any like suggestions or some like key skills, like top 3 skills you think that master students should have to prepare for this kind of job?
And again, she's at Wayne State University in the Detroit area and got her PhD 3 years ago or 2.5 at IU in IST. So
absolutely, I think it's a mix of, like, even for master's students, I think it's helpful to know tools, right? Like competency, like especially for your own competency building. So like a deeper understanding of different ID models, right? Theories behind that, right? Learning theories. However, I also encourage master students to read outside the box, right? Read outside the field. Oh my God, my dogs are barking. I'm sorry. Read outside the field. There's so much understanding from neuroscience, especially that we can apply into teaching and learning. So I think I'm bringing a lot of this understanding from different parts of the field, social psychology, right? So I think like reading outside really deepens their understanding of becoming a more competent instructional designer. Another tip I have is really engage with the community too. So I think this is like going back to one of the questions is, what is the best way to begin consulting? So I think, don't wait to start consulting after you have your master's, right? But so like really engage with the community. So like at IST, we have the GIST group, right, on Facebook. A lot of them, some of them have companies, some of them work for companies, and there's always an ad for, like a mini project or consulting opportunities. So I think really jump on that, like have students start early, build a portfolio early. So by the time you graduate, when you're up for the job market, you're already able to provide examples of what you've done, because this really goes back to even some of my own experiences, when I'm being interviewed, is when you can speak to some of these examples. So it's like, for example, I did this, or for example, it's very tangible, right? Than like speaking in the abstract. So I think these would be my advice.
I think I'll just add to that. I mean, I agree with everything that Khendum says. I think coming from my experience, like I said, I learned a lot of things on the job. Like, when I started, I didn't know so many different tools. And, I always had this list of cool tools that you can use, like for presentation, for mind mapping, and that's my expertise in is cool, fun tools. I'll share that document as well if you guys want it. Uh, and that's what I train my master's student as well. Even though they're healthcare education workers, I try to train them to use those different tools so that they get that understanding of technology. So I think basically, just learning those kind of uh, e-learning authoring tools. Currently, I really use a lot of Articulate Rise, Articulate Storyline. I use a lot of Teams. So most of my course information is set in Blackboard, but most of the discussions, classes, everything is held in Microsoft Teams. So I guess keeping abreast with those kind of uh, technological tools that are being used either in academia or in corporate, I think that really helps, understanding what are some of the things that you can do with them, what are some of what is some of the engagement that you can use, like whether it's through Zoom or Teams or Blackboard or any of those, what are some of those engagement tools that you can use. I think my second advice would be keep researching. Okay, don't hold back. You don't need a PhD to be a researcher, believe me. I'm a qualitative researcher. I hardly have any quantitative experience. I don't even have SPSS experience. Most of my papers involve process papers, design, how things evolved over time. So don't shirk from that. If you see that there's a conference that really speaks to your interest, go for it. If there's a manuscript that you feel that, okay, you know what, I can probably contribute something to this, I can probably write a process paper, or I can write something about best practices, or I can do like sort of analysis of different literature reviews, just do it. Okay, so don't hold back from that. I think third, develop some, I even spoke about this last time, develop some project management skills. It will be useful wherever you go, whether it's corporate, whether it's academia. As you go higher, you will need those skills on how to manage projects, how to strategize, how to assign tasks, how to manage calendars and all of those things. So I never got that opportunity. I sort of learned it as you go, and you can. But those are some things that you can really focus on. Also look at quality matters, quality assurance. So think about course design, think about program design with that lens, on how to incorporate those quality standards and best practices into your instructional design.
So that whole list of tools was yours. You designed that. Oh my God.
I didn't design. I mean, let me share that link. I didn't design. It's a list that has been curated for the past decade.
Okay.
But I mean, this list started when I was working with math and science teachers in a program called iSmart, and they were supposed to.
I know iSmart.
Yes,
I helped you get the grant for that.
Yes.
Yeah, I at least edited it.
So I did the technology orientations for them, and they were the whole the way they would have to present, every time they would need to use a different tool. Like it was not just training them on how to integrate math and science in the classroom, but it was also getting them technologically savvy on how to integrate the instructional technology into their classroom. So basically this list has, and it's still the same font from a decade ago. I haven't had the time to update it, but it's just sort of evolved because many of the companies, they closed down, they took over. So I keep updating it as it comes. But it's categorized. It's categorized based on presentations, word clouds, timelines. You can
it's
free
amazing.
Images.
Yeah. So I'm teaching emerging technologies this semester, and I told my TAs that we're going to have Emerging Technologies Day. I think it's at the end of March. And so I just sent them the list. I copied that and I sent it to all three of them. I said, look for something to show. So I remember iSmart, that's Mimi Lee's project with, I forget, with somebody else. Jennifer, yeah. So that was a big grant for blended learning math in the state of Texas. That was a good project. We have a
I'll
couple
keep
questions.
updating this list. I mean, there are a lot
Uh-huh.
of AI tools. There's like a online scavenger hunt tool that's out there that you can use with your students, either online or on campus. So there's a lot of stuff out there. So I'll keep updating it if you guys ever want to see or are interested.
We've lost a couple of people because they had to go, but this is being recorded. The students don't have to come to these, but I recorded for them. So there's a lot of people going to watch this later. 2 questions are in the Jamboard, though, listed for Khendum, but I'll make them for both of you. Who has the questions on the Jamboard? Is that you, Priska? Yeah.
One of them is me.
Yeah.
It's geared towards Khendum because she's actually one of the main characters for my project that's due tonight. She
is a character, isn't she?
Yeah, in my task. But no, the question was about instructional design for art specifically, because I teach art as well, and that was one of the challenges. What are some things that you had to encounter that were a little bit unexpected in terms of challenges when you were developing these art classes? And also, how do you get professors that are a little bit scared of using technology to teach art, to work with these programs?
That's a very good question. Thanks for asking that question. So I think what I do, and this is not only with art faculty, right? But I think with any teacher where teaching is like a part of their practice, I think I really meet them where they are at. So I think like really starting off their professional development from this very piecemeal approach. So rather than saying, this is what you have to do for online learning, I think like chunking out, and chunking out that knowledge. But also what's helpful is when I talk about meeting them where they are at, it's like, what excites you to be a teacher, right? Like what motivates you to teach art? Like there must be something that drives you. So I think I kind of like when you are able to like hit that sweet spot and like able to kind of like reel them in terms of that motivation, then you can slowly like sneakily introduce some of these, innovative practices for engagement, technological tools that they can use. But I think like it really starts with like what drives you, right? And so this is the first, like in any consult that I have, I always start with, what excites you to teach, right? This class, like what is it about this subject that is interesting? How do you usually teach it, right? So in an in-person setting, and then you kind of like translating that. So it's kind of, because I think the problem that I see and I'm trying to dismantle is really pitting one modality against the other. And I think this is what we do, right? We say online is better than blended is better than online, hybrid, there's so many other modalities, online synchronous, high flex. And what I try to do is it's like, when you kind of look at all of these different modalities, like there is something that's very common among that, right? It's like teaching and learning is still happening in all of these spaces. So I think it's really kind of grounding them in becoming a more reflective teacher. And when you're able to do that, when they're able to go back to the basics, then it's easy to then introduce like, okay, maybe you want to try voice thread, right? Or maybe you want to try, so for example, for an art class, we did a high flex programming this fall for MFA faculty. And so one of the challenges was, how do we do critiques, right? For students who are joining remotely. And so we had a mobile cart where students were able to, like the faculty was able to move that mobile cart into the art space, but then you are not, it's not compensating or compromising on the quality of the art. So ensuring that the technology is still very high quality, so you're able to look at the art. And another thing that we are introducing is turning a lot of these artifacts, or teaching faculty how to turn a lot of these artifacts into 3D models. So that way students who are remotely looking at this art and critiquing it from a distance, they're still able to, because I think that's also a part of equitable learning, right? You're still creating this equitable learning experience for students who are joining remotely. So it's kind of like having them understand how to use the 3D technology, how to use we have this camera that we have in at MCAT that we use primarily for art and design. How do you use this tool? So there's a lot of this technical know-how, but then the second piece is like, well, now how do you engage students with this? So something that I've said many times to faculty is like, always try to be technologically agile, right? Because like Anita mentioned, these tools keep changing, so many companies keep changing, but then try to be pedagogically centered because, learning theories are learning theories, right? It doesn't change. There are new ways of thinking of how we do things, but there's still fundamentals in how we teach and learn. So I think that's what I would like to say. So I hope
End of the day, it's good teaching.
Yeah,
it's just good teaching. End of the day.
Absolutely. I think it always comes back to that. It's like, really grounding them to be a good teacher.
There's learning environments that we're creating, if that's the focus, right?
Yes.
And then we don't have to say one theory is better than another. They're all theories about creating learning environments that are successful. There are principles, however, within those learning environments, as I mentioned at my lecture at the start about making learning meaningful, giving choice, all these things, a teacher is co-learner and so forth and so on. There's those principles in that effective learning environment. So I'm teaching learning environments next fall. It's a lead-in. So one other question is on the Jamboard, and I think I'll ask it because the person who put it might be embarrassed to ask this question. They ask, and I'll start with Anita, what is the best way to begin a consulting on the side? Are there any recommendations that you have?
I wish I could begin consulting on the side. So if you have any opportunities, please send them my way. Actually, I think just updating your resume, being more proactive on LinkedIn. So, following a lot of different groups and different hashtags, I guess lately, social media is the way to go. In fact, I heard someone saying the other day that, TikTok is going to take over everything. And if you're not on TikTok, then I'm like, you're sort of redundant in life. But I think, just following a variety of groups. I follow many hashtags, many different instructional design groups on Facebook, on Instagram, specifically on LinkedIn. And that, you'll keep seeing a lot of different opportunities of people needing consultants, people, putting out those requests, asking, or somebody has joined a new institution or a new company and they're sort of recruiting, some contractors. So just keeping an eye out for that is, I guess, that's one way of doing it. Keep in mind, keep in mind how much you charge and all of that, just make sure that you are in with how the market goes.
I absolutely agree. I think it's helpful to like be present in a lot of these spaces. LinkedIn is there is a number of like hashtags that you can follow. Another thing I think I've spoke to this, right, is like really advocate for yourself. So like, especially if you're in IST, we have the GIST group even in Facebook. I would even just post like, hey, I'm looking for side gig, or is there any opportunity to do something? And there's a lot of IST alumni, they always look out for you, so like, if there's something, they'll always keep you in mind. So I think reaching out to, so rather than waiting for like an ad to post, I think sometimes if you can, and in LinkedIn, you can see a lot of these recruiters. Another thing is, as instructional design is becoming even more popular, right? Even in industry, I would reach out directly to recruiters, through LinkedIn, saying, this is my CV, like send an updated CV. Also maintain a very active portfolio where you are able to showcase some of your products, examples of some of the projects you've done. So then it can speak for the variety of the work that you are putting together. So I think it's really helpful to keep a portfolio and share that portfolio, so whether it's a website or however you want to present it, I think it's always helpful.
Yeah, I agree. I think maintain that portfolio. If you don't have any ongoing projects, connect with the faculty or someone, faculty who teaches online, just offer, that you can design one of the modules or some of the content you can design like an asynchronous learning, or you can have some kind of a case-based sort of a scenario for them, or you can create a game as an assessment for them. So just pull in your contacts, and if you have any faculty that you worked with in the past or you're currently working with, anyone from your institution, just ask them that, can I offer to create something, and that will just help you build that portfolio.
Yeah, and you guys mentioned a few things here. I've finally created a portfolio or a career website, so go to Kurt Bonk. Yes, finally, I have one up. So as of last week,
it's probably
or the week
100
before.
pages.
No, it's just one page as well. We'll see. So one tip I have is at conferences, do the workshops or fill, especially training related, corporate training conferences. They have the day before the conference start or after the conference ends. If you do the workshop, you'll stick out a little bit. And if people enjoyed your workshop, they'll recommend you for things that are consultative in nature. That's one way I made a lot of connections early in my career. I was given that tip by a student of mine. It was very successful with that. And so find also create catchy titles for those workshops so people come to them as well, and do something active and engaging during them so that people enjoy them. So that was a definite one. And if you're going to do a book, a simple way to go is a short edited book. It doesn't take as much time as writing your own book. So then you'd have something to show and go, oh, that person's an expert at XYZ, and they might bring you into consulting side. I often take pictures of people who are famous, and then I send them their picture, and then after the conference, oh, we had this picture together, and then I get to introduce myself to them, and so that is one way to get to, just having after the conference, after their keynote at the end, go up to them and ask if you get a picture with them, and then send it to them with your email address, and then they get to know you. So there's some of the things. There's many, many more for getting consultative, just networking, and networking is the big thing in team projects. Getting on a team with other good people, and they might get asked, and then they'll ask you to help. So I have a final question because we're out of time here. We're at 8:30. We've got an hour and 15 minutes, I think, since I started the clock going. But I do want to ask this last question, if that's okay. What are you working on right now? What has you the most excited? And what is perhaps going to happen next? So it's all the same question, basically. What is happening now? What are in the cusp of? What's got you excited?
Right now, it's the SAC COC report that's happening. So I'm not really excited about that. It was a lot of work to review standards and all of that. But I think what I'm excited about is co-chairing the distance education committee and, sort of beginning that whole dialogue about quality matters and, bringing, those quality assurance standards into play, more like in the forefront rather than just limited to course design, but more in terms of program design and institutional trainings and all of that. And collaborating with all the, stakeholders like faculty and provosts and deans and all of those. So I think that's really exciting. I'm working on a project, like I said, about faculty promotion. So I'm pretty excited about that. It's a collaborative effort. It's going to roll out for institutionally. So it's institution-wide. It's going to be there forever. So really excited about probably getting the opportunity to write about it, like a pre and a post on, how initially it was a face-to-face sort of a learning or a training, and now it's going to be completely virtual. So sort of, understanding how, whether it worked or not. So pretty much excited about that. What's next? Oh my gosh. Really excited about teaching online. So hopefully getting more courses like that. Hopefully getting consultation gigs and, whatever Khendum mentioned, getting more money on those like Bitcoins or the NFTs, maybe getting into that. I think learning a lot more. Probably this year, last 2 years have been sort of a blur. Didn't get an opportunity to write much, research much, go to any conference. But I think hopefully this year, sort of bringing some of my quality matters experience into play and, writing and presenting at a few conferences. Looking forward to that, getting back into a little bit of research and writing.
Well, first you got to get invited to teach this course a second time, and after that, then expand. You know,
Yes.
You've developed. It takes you a long time to develop that content the first time. You don't want to do it like many. They get here's a new course, here's a new course, here's a new course, you want to teach the same course. I think the first 3 semesters she had 6 new courses or 8 new courses. It was crazy, and that happened to me too. So you want to teach that same course again once and then expand. Yeah.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
I'm open to anything.
Yeah. Well, we'll all sit in when you become the expert in a few semesters down the road. We'll join you and I'll join you when you get Tusi Haruni. And so, we'll be there for that. And Khendum, do you have any exciting things you're doing right now?
Yes, my life is always exciting. I think I mentioned this in my introduction. I'm heavily embedded in the DEI space, inclusive teaching and learning. I'm also part of the strategic planning with the community engagement with MCAD and how we can be a more inclusive teaching and learning institute. So I think really kind of fostering engagement in that space, like how do you mindfully decolonize the curriculum, diversifying your curriculum, right? Especially in an art and design institute. So I'm heavily embedded in that. What I'm excited about, I think also really bringing up to speed my team in terms of developing, standards. We've already been doing a lot of guidelines, templates in the realm of different modalities. We're currently writing a design case on the HighFlex project that we had run the last 2 semesters. So we're sending it into international journals for design learning. Might also present that at a conference maybe sometime next year. What do I want? I'm hoping that now as we kind of go more, not back to normal, but I think as we can travel, I think next year I do plan to go back and doing some of the medical mission, health education aspect of my work, picking up on that. I'm on the roster member as a Fulbright specialist. So I think that's my next plan, is to take up a Fulbright project in the developing world, some interesting project like that. And then I think I'm hoping to get rich with my NFTs. Consider sharing that. So yeah, I think that's what I'm excited about, and what's up in the horizon for me.
So
I'm having twins too. So
oh, wait a minute.
Are you really? Twins?
I did you tell me it was twins earlier or no?
I don't remember. Yeah, but that's happening, guys.
Oh dear. You didn't tell me that.
Twins. Oh my God.
Yeah, a lot happening.
Oh, wonderful. Thankfully, my kids are in college, so I don't have to. I just have to worry about a dog.
When are the twins due?
Sometime in July. So
my daughters do sometime in July too. So, but yeah, we'll see. So I do want to make a plug for next Monday. Now, this class, by the way, next week we have people from Sri Lanka and Sam Nadu, who's originally from Fiji. He's now living in Melbourne. Going to talk about open education resources, open education practices. But in my other class on a Monday, Maina and I are going to present at 6:30 in the same channel on the same link in Zoom. Our studies, about 6 studies on self-directed learning and MOOCs for an hour at 6:30 to 7:30 with Q&A after that till 6:45, but at quarter to 8. At 8 o'clock Eastern, which is 7 o'clock Central, I'm going to have 4 of my colleagues from graduate school a long time ago come back, including Tom Reynolds, who's done 3 MOOCs books with me. 4 colleagues from grad school, 2 in Korea, 1 in California, and then, well, Tom was in California, he's now in Miami. We're going to talk about the past, present, and future of ed tech, IST, learning, design, and technology, because one of the cohort of us 5 is retiring next Monday on that day from in Korea, which is actually going to be on Tuesday in Korea. But yeah, it's going to be a special event at 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock Central, the past, present, and future of educational technology with some 4 very smart people plus me. I'll be moderating and talking once in a while. So it'll be really, really fun. Never did it before. None of these people have been a guest for my classes. in all this time, in the 30 some years I've been teaching, none of them have ever been a guest in my class. So this is really looking forward to bringing them all in. We'll have some fun with that, including one person from public health at Cal State Long Beach, my good friend Veronica Acosta, originally from the Philippines, where Khendum spent her undergraduate career a while ago. So again, I want to thank Anita for coming twice. Thank Khendum for coming twice, 3 times actually. Khendum was Silver Lining for Learning now. So and I wish you well with twins. Oh my God, I'll never see you again, Khendum, for the next 10 years anyhow. But you know, I will enjoy coming to visit Minneapolis and seeing your 3 dogs and 2 kids. I hope to do that soon, actually. So I want to give them a round of applause. And everyone, can you put in the chat window maybe a couple words? And I'm gonna end this session. So I'll stop the recording to the cloud. So